All right, here we go. The rest of our book. Let's see what happens. Chapter 7. The next morning, Miss Sims stood in front of the class. She waited until we were quiet. Then she said, "As some of you may know, Babette has been working on a special project. She's writing a book, and she wants to share it with you." Warren started to laugh. Miss Sims stared at him, and he stopped. "Why don't you come up to the front of the class, Babette?" she said. I stood up and walked to the front of the class with my first chapter. I cleared my throat, took a deep breath, and started to read. It was supposed to be a class trip like any other one, except, of course, Miss Ripley's third grade class was going to Disney World. Miss Ripley was checking for lunches, sweatshirts, and permission slips when suddenly a loud voice popped up from the back of the bus. "I don't have my lunch," said Eldridge. "Why not?" asked Miss Ripley. "I ate it on the way to school," said Eldridge. "Why on earth did you do that?" "Why on earth did I do that?" asked Ripley. She looked at the chubby boy over the top of her glasses. "I was hungry," said Eldridge. "Well, then you won't be hungry at lunchtime, will you?" said Miss Ripley. "Yes, I will," said Eldridge. "I'm hungry right now." The kids in class started to laugh. "That sounds just like Warren," said John Boyles. "Please don't interrupt," said Miss Sims, but she was smiling too. I wondered if she had figured out the truth. I continued reading. By the time I got to the end of the chapter, everyone was all excited about the book. Miss Sims decided I should read the class a chapter each week from The Worst Class Trip Ever for the rest of the school year. The kids could hardly wait to hear what was going to happen next. Some of the kids, mainly Warren Peach, actually pestered me in the playground to tell him what was going to happen next. Warren wanted to know everything before everyone else did. At the end of every chapter, I left the kids on the edge of a new and crazy and dangerous disaster. I had hurricanes and bad guys and wild pigs and poisonous water holes. You name it, I stuck it in there. I had lots of funny things happen in my book, too. Like when Karen Wings got lost in the jungle and we couldn't find her for 2 days. Marty and I tracked her down by following the sound of her sniffling. But the funny things that happened were not just in the story either. For one thing, I'd planned to give each kid in the class a strange habit. It was going to be their weird habit that ended up saving us all, of course. I was hoping that even though I had changed everyone's names, they wouldn't catch on who they were too quickly. Well, the first surprise was that they all got it right away. Of course, there were easy ones with Marty Deegan and Warren Peach. Everyone figured out in a second. Then the rest of the kids in the class guessed that they were probably in the story too. So they started looking for themselves. By chapter 2, when the class was driving the hijackers out of their minds, they all figured it out. I thought the kids would be mad, but they loved it. They thought it was a great joke that their oddball acts were actually better weapons than guns and knives. Not only that, but they started giving me ideas for the story. Mary Beth sent me a zillion notes during math class. "Why don't you have Marty go rock collecting on top of a volcano? Then I could save him before the volcano erupts." The next note was even sillier. "Why not have everyone get trapped in an underground water cavern? We could discover a family of mermaids." During recess, Mary Beth came up to me. I could tell she wanted to give me some more ideas. "If you're so good at coming up with ideas," I said to Mary Beth, "why don't you write a book of your own?" "Maybe I will," she said. I think she was mad at me. It turned out to be she actually did write over summer vacation. Nobody saw Mary Beth for 2 whole months. But the best part of all was Susie Alton. By the time I was up to chapter 4, it was the end of May and practically the end of school. She came up to me on the playground. "I want you to look at something," she said. I was about to tell her to take a long walk off a short plank, but she looked sort of funny. For one thing, her cheeks were all red. For another, she didn't have that snooty look on her face. She was even smiling, an almost regular smile. "Sure," I said, "but I only have 1 minute." She held out her sketchbook at me. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. Never mind, said Susie. She started to take it back, but I snatched it away from her. I figured she was about to show me another bunch of drawings drawn by a grown up. Then she would confess that I'd been right about her all along. She was just pretending to be able to draw. I could hardly wait to catch Susie Alton making up a big lie. I opened the sketchbook. On the first page, there was a picture of all the kids in our class at the gates of Disney World. There were Warren Peach, Mary Beth Hughes, Ellen Winston, me, John Bowles, and of course, Miss Sims. The next picture showed everyone getting on the tour boat. The two guys with the long, lumpy overcoats were looking at us. Miss Sims looked grouchy and hot. In the next picture, all of us stood lined up against the boat cabin. The lumpy guys were holding machine guns on us. The captain and Miss Sims had their hands up in the air. They looked really scared. Miss Sims' glasses hung off one ear. Warren Peach was yanking on the sleeve of one of the bad guys. That was the part where Warren kept saying, "When is lunch?" These pictures were great. You did these? I asked as I flipped through a few more, but I knew the answer. Uh-huh, said Susie, looking sort of snooty but still red-faced. The rest of the pictures matched the story right up through chapter 4. When did you draw them? I asked. I did some of them while you were reading aloud to us, said Susie, but most of them I drew at home when I remembered. I bet, I said. I tried to sound like I didn't think they were so great. Actually, I was really pleased, but I didn't want to tell Susie that. After all, I'd accused her of lying about being able to draw. These pictures looked like a grown-up's work, but Susie was the only person who could have done them. The only grown-ups who had heard the story was Miss Sims and my mom. Neither of them could draw at all. Susie had just proved she was telling the truth. Of course, I had been proving for the last month that I was telling the truth about writing my novel. So there we were. I wasn't a liar anymore, and Susie wasn't a liar anymore either. We were artists. How neat. Let's go inside and show your drawings to Miss Sims, I said, still holding onto the sketchbook. Susie grabbed the book back. No, they're not good enough to show her yet. Sure they are, I said. I think Miss Sims will really like them. We walked back inside together. Miss Sims was sitting on her desk correcting papers. She glanced up from her desk when we entered the room. Miss Sims, I said, we have something to show you. Susie walked slowly to the front of the classroom and handed her the sketchbook. Her face was bright red. Miss Sims spent a long time studying the pictures. Then she looked up at Susie. Your drawings are excellent, Susie. Susie smiled, and I did too. I was really glad Miss Sims liked the pictures. Miss Sims thought for a minute. Then she said, I have an idea. Why don't you put the drawings and the story together? Then we can make photocopies. That way all the class will have their own story to remember our third grade year. That's great, I called. Now all I have to do is finish it. And I did. Or should I say, we did. We finished it just before the last day of school, with Susie drawing pictures right along with me. I got really excited. I began thinking about what part of the story should look like. I wanted to write good scenes for Susie to draw. Of course, that meant Susie and I had to talk to each other a lot. And guess what? Susie and I are best friends now. It turns out that she's just like me. I mean, her mom and dad are divorced too. But it's worse for her. Her dad got married again and actually started a whole new family. At least my mom and dad have the sense to keep it simple. And Susie was snooty to me because she thought I was stuck up. I guess I was acting stuck up too. Having a best friend was great. We worked and we talked and we played together all the time. And I didn't have to make up even one story. The truth could actually be pretty interesting too. By the last day of school, we came in June. The book was done and so were all the pictures. I got everyone off the island. I got the bad guys arrested. We'd already started driving the Coast Guard crazy on the boat that rescued us in the last chapter. In the book, Miss Sims was very grateful to all of us. She promised that since we had saved her life, I had her step on a piece of paper of coral and get poisoned. She would never give us any homework again. She said she could give us all the homework she wanted, but that she wasn't allowed to give anyone a lower than a B+. All we wanted, we said, was another chance to take a trip to Disney World. So here we are, Susie and I and the rest of the class, headed for fourth grade. We'll be rich and famous someday, I'm sure. You see, I sent a copy of the book to this famous Hollywood director. Maybe he'll want to make it into a movie, and he'll want everyone in class to be in it. I can just see Susie and me riding this to school next year in a limousine. I felt sort of sorry for the fourth grade teacher. Wouldn't you? I love it. Turned out great. I hope you enjoyed it too.